I call to order this regular meeting of the Board of Public Works this Tuesday, November 21st of 2023. First up on our agenda, we have opening of sealed bids, disposal services of municipal solid waste, and single-stream recycling. All right, we received two bids. The first one is from Rumpke of Indiana, LLC. And for item number 1, disposal cost for municipal solid waste collected by the city, the cost per ton is $43. For item number 2, disposal cost of single-stream recycling materials collected by the city, the cost per ton is $68. The second bid is from Republic Services of Indiana, LP, DBA Hoosier Transfer Station. For item number 1, disposal cost for municipal solid waste collected by the city, the cost per ton is $43. For item 2, disposal cost of single-stream recycling materials collected by the city, the cost per ton is $10.
And hopefully come back with a request to award sometime in December. So thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have messages from the board. Do we have any messages from board members this evening? Next, we have the consent agenda. Under the consent agenda, we have the 2024 service agreement with City Lawn, 2024 service agreement with Harold Fish, Inc. for HVAC repairs and maintenance, 2024 service agreement with Harold Fish, Inc. for plumbing repairs and maintenance, 2024 service agreement with Indiana Door and Hardware, 2024 service agreement with Fotizo DBA Fish Window, and approval of payroll. Do we have any items that need to be removed from the consent agenda at this time? Seeing none. Are there any public comments on anything within the consent agenda? Thank you. Is there a motion on the consent agenda?
I move that we approve the consent agenda for tonight's meeting, November 21, 2023.
I second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second. I will call the roll. Coopersmith?
Aye.
Carone?
Aye.
Cox-Deckard, aye. Motion passes. Next up, we have new business. First item under new business is Resolution 2023-77, Renew Mobile Vendor Community Kitchen. Oh, this is probably Mr. Wason's item. We can wait on him. Sorry, we were moving expeditiously through the agenda. So we're on new business. Item number 1, Resolution 2023-77, Renew Mobile Vendor Community Kitchen.
Yeah, so this is just a renewal for the Community Kitchen's food truck that services out in the community. Pretty standard renewal, but we did take it off the consent agenda with your role, Kyla, on the Community Kitchen Board of Directors, but we do request your approval for this important community need.
Thank you. I will recuse myself from this item as I serve on the board of the Community Kitchen. I will leave it to my colleagues.
All right, any questions from the board on this item?
Not a question. I'll just observe that Tim Clower is not the owner of Community Kitchen. I think that's just form language from the paperwork, but yeah, I have no questions.
Okay, any public comment on this item?
I see nothing on Zoom.
Okay, seeing none, do we have a motion?
I I move to approve Resolution 2377 for a mobile vendor permit for the Community Kitchen of Monroe County.
I second that, and I will call roll. Coopersmith?
Aye.
Carone? Aye. Cox Deckard?
Now a recusal.
Motion passes.
Next item under new business is lane and sidewalk closure request from AEG.
I'm told that it's really hard to hear you, so if you could move the mics closer.
Perfect. So we're actually
Thank
going to ask that you remove this item from the agenda. We have, we're having some ongoing conversations with AEG right now on we've had some struggles with some information sharing of late, and so we are going to pull this and ask that they continue working under their previous permits, and that we would come back in December if we can get some things straightened out. So.
Okay. Are there any public comments on this item before we make a motion to?
There's nothing on Zoom.
Okay. All right. So I will make a motion that we table the lane and sidewalk closure request from AEG. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. I will call the roll. Carone?
Aye.
Coopersmith?
Aye.
Cox Deckard? Aye. Motion passes. Next up is consultant agreement for BMC MPO 2050 Metropolitan Transportation Plan.
Hi, my name is Rachel Sargent. I am a MPO transportation planner within the city, but we also work as an organization with the Bloomington Monroe County Metropolitan Planning Organization. We are updating our 2050 Metropolitan Transportation Plan. This is a long-term planning document, and we're hoping to move forward with the consultant we selected. There was a request for information posted in early July. It was open for 6 weeks. We received one submittal, and even though we only received one, we 3 staff independently reviewed it and scored it, and we felt that it was a satisfactory submittal, and we're hoping to move forward with that.
Thank you. Questions on this item? Okay. Any public comment on this item?
There's nothing on Zoom.
All right. Is there a motion?
I move that we approve the consultant agreement for the BMC MPO 2050 Metropolitan Transportation Plan.
I second the motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second. I will call the roll. Carone?
Aye.
Coopersmith?
Aye.
Cox Deckard? Aye. Motion passes. Thanks. Next up is contract with Fox Construction for Fire Station Number 1 renovation.
Good evening. You want to take it, Chief?
More than happy to.
Go ahead.
Good evening, Jason Moore, Fire Chief. You will actually have a series of contracts before you tonight. All of these in their totality will allow us to go ahead and start working on Fire Station 1 remodeling. The Fox Construction, I believe, is for 2 portions of that. This was a competitive bid process. We had an on-site bid review with all of the people that were going to do the bidding. This was closed, opened according to law. This was also scored, and this is the lower bidder for this particular portion of the contract. I'd be happy to take any questions, but we would appreciate your support of this.
Thank you. Questions from the board on this item?
No questions.
No questions.
Just for general awareness and the board's awareness, can you describe the location of Fire Station Number 1 and just the kind of overarching purpose of this remodel?
Great. So the location is 300 East 4th. That is our downtown fire station. Remind the board that this was a long time coming project that we had to completely redo after the flood of 2021. So this new scope of this project will tear down a portion of the building, leaving a portion standing. It will completely fill in the basement, because that's the only way I can promise that the basement will never flood again, is it will not have one. All of the addition will come on, a new 3-story addition into the area where it's 2 stories that was torn down. And everything will be within the contained footprint, outer footprint of what it is now. It'll just be taller in one section, and it will be a more modern fire station built for all of our firefighters.
Thank you.
And you'll have similar capacity to hold the same vehicles at the headquarters station that you did in the prior building?
It will. It'll restore full function of that building. It will house 2 large apparatus, which is 10 personnel. It'll hold the battalion chief and the squad, which is a total of 3 between the two. And it will have the base space like it used to for an additional light rescue or medium rescue truck. Yep.
Thanks. Any other questions on this item? Any public comment on this item?
There's no comment on Zoom.
All right, seeing none, is there a motion?
So we're taking these one at a time, correct? Okay. I move that we approve the contract for Fox Construction for Fire Station Number 1 renovation.
I second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. I will call the roll. Corone?
Aye.
Cooper Smith?
Aye.
Cox Deckard, aye. Motion passes. Next up is contract with Reed & Sons for Fire Station Number 1 renovation. And you don't have to offer another staff report, although if there are any questions about this portion of the project, open to the board for questions. Okay. Any public comments on this item?
There's no comment on Zoom.
All right. Is there a motion on this item?
I move that we approve the contract with Reed & Sons for Fire Station Number 1 renovation.
I second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. I will call the roll. Corone?
Aye.
Cooper Smith?
Aye.
Cox Deckard, aye. Motion passes. Next up is contract with Harold Fish, Inc., HFI, for Fire Station Number 1 renovation. Again, this is for the same project we've heard the staff report on. I'll open up to board questions. Any public comments on this side? Oh, did you want to say something about this one?
One comment,
Sure.
just to make sure that we're having full transparency. While we did solicit a lot of bids, this is the only section that only had 1 person bid for it. Still the lowest bid, but I just wanted to make sure that that was transparent and out and open for everyone to understand.
Great, thank you. Any public comments on this item? Okay, thank you. Is there a motion?
I move that we approve the contract with Harold Fish, Inc., HFI, for Fire Station Number 1 renovation.
I second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. I will call the roll. Corone?
Aye.
Cooper Smith?
Aye.
Cox Deckard, aye. Motion passes. Next up is contract with Electric Plus for Fire Station Number 1 renovation. Any questions on this item? Any public comment on this item?
There's no comment on Zoom.
All right. Is there a motion?
I move that we approve the contract with Electric Plus for Fire Station Number 1 renovation.
I second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. I will call the roll. Corone?
Aye.
Cooper Smith?
Aye.
Cox Deckard, aye. Motion passes. Thanks. Next up, we have appeals. Under appeals, we have appeal notice of violation 62023-08-1314 at 530 South Washington.
Would you like to set your parameters?
Yeah, so for the appeal process, we had discussed the last time we brought this item forward. There are 15 minutes to hear from the appellant. We will then turn it over for up to 15 minutes for city staff presentation, and then we will open it up to board questions and comments after that. So I would call the appellant to the microphone.
I'm sorry, my witnesses haven't arrived yet. I was told by Adam Wason that the time would be much later this evening since I was going to be going at the end.
5:40 or 5:45? It is 5:44.
My witnesses have yet to arrive. I humbly ask that we have a recess for a few minutes.
Clear, for the appeal, there will not be public comment. So
My witnesses are bringing images that are relevant to the presentation tonight.
Joe, you should start your presentation right now. Your time is starting.
I am not ready to make that presentation. I ask that we have
the time is now
10
5:45, and it is time to begin the presentation.
I ask that we have a 10-minute recess
Joe, we're not going to do that. We're going to start just like what I told you we would. Your time has started now.
My witnesses who are here to support me are not present because I was told that I would be presenting at the very end of the meeting. I ask that you continue with the rest of the meeting's agenda and at least allow me another 10 minutes.
To my knowledge, we don't have anything else on the agenda.
Yes.
It,
Joe, this is
it
your time.
looks,
Joe, this is your time. You are, Mr. Davis, I'm going to just let you know. You,
it looks as if
Mr.
staff
Davis, could you
reports,
please-
other business, approval of claims
We don't
could
have
go forward.
those. We
Joe.
don't have those items this evening. We won't be.
Mr. Davis, you're at 13 minutes and 30 seconds remaining.
I am asking procedurally for another 10 minutes for my support to arrive. I was told that I would be making my appeal presentations much later than this time.
Joe, that is not true. You know I told you it would be 5:40 to 5:45.
The meeting starts at 5:30. That makes no logical sense.
Well, it's what I told you, Joe.
I welcome Mr. Wheeler to go ahead and make his presentation.
Okay, we'll proceed with staff presentation.
With all due respect to the board, we gave our presentation weeks ago, and there isn't anything more for us to present. What I wanted to say to the board is that procedurally speaking, the meeting starts at 5:30, and those who are going to be present to conduct any business with the board needs to be here at 5:30 so that when their item comes up, they're ready to go. The city is ready to proceed. We ask that the board proceed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Davis, now is your time to present.
Mr. Davis, the appeal time has restarted.
Again, I only ask that I'm granted 10 minutes.
That is not, your request is not being granted, Mr. Davis. Now is your time.
Again, I humbly ask for 10-minute recess such that my supporters can arrive and I can better prepare my materials for presentation.
The appeal time is still underway.
I welcome Mr. Wheeler to go ahead and make his presentation.
He has concluded his presentation.
Okay, first off, I would like to say I was just handed these images this evening from Rob Council. I've not had any time to look these over and prepare for these images. Where are my rights to due process? Where are my rights to due process? Just simply handing me 20 images before I've had a chance to even review them disallows me to make an adequate defense against whatever incriminating evidence is in this packet.
The
Mr.
appeal time is
Davis?
still underway. I just want to be clear about that. We're at the 11-minute mark.
Okay, first off, I would like to say that, as you might recall from the last time that I was before this board 1 month ago, I brought up the fact that Beth Kate, corporate counsel for the legal department, City of Bloomington, offered to organize a meeting on my property between herself, Scott Robinson of Planning and Transportation, John Zodi of Hand, and Bobby LaRue of the Monroe County Building Department. And we held this meeting on the 2nd of this month. In this meeting, which lasted for approximately 1 hour and 15 minutes, a video was taken by Anna Killian Hansen, which presents the most up-to-date images of my property, not like the images that were in the board packet that I reviewed on Monday. The board packet has in there images from June 26th, it looks like, from stills taken from a video that John Hewitt of Hand took in relation to the judge allowing Hand to come onto my property and take a look at the items. So these images were very grandiose in size. I don't know if you were able to take a look at them, but they were huge, and they created a Where's Waldo scenario in which it's so vague and so large, any accusation of non-compliance could easily be construed just by the unknowingness of these huge images. All right? As I mentioned before, I have been trying for a year and a half to get not only someone from Hand, but someone from Planning and Transportation to come onto my property and point out specifically what items might or might not be in violation. We held this meeting on the 2nd of the month, and in that we talked about the processes in which we would employ moving forward. At that time, there was nothing specific addressing my materials, my sanctioned materials that are part of my permitted and certificate of zoning compliant granting for my proposed structure in my backyard and the repair of my house. And also the recognition of my installed art at the front and sides of my house. So at the conclusion of that meeting, it was agreed by all present that I would come up with an inventory of my building materials which are going to be utilized in my structure and in the repair of my house, and that I would submit this to Planning and Transportation. It was suggested by Scott Robinson that I make contact with the Planning Department, and he suggested Eric Grulich would be the appropriate person to meet with. And I have started communication with Eric Grulich to set up a time for us to meet and discuss the inventory of my materials, and also to the issue of improved parking surfaces, i.e. gravel, which my vehicles and trailers are parked on gravel. Currently, there are many leaves on the ground because they have all just fallen, and my property is a woodland garden, so I have many, many trees. So we agreed that that would be the next step with Planning and Transportation. Now, with John Zodi, who was also present, we agreed that the next step would be for John Zodi to come onto my property, and we would go over specifically each and every item and discuss whether or not it was compliant or not. We have not been able to conduct this meeting yet. It's likely to take place next week following Thanksgiving, but we have not had this meeting. So therefore, there has not been any legitimate discussion as to my building materials. And again, over the last year and a half, I have left voicemails, I have left emails, I have sent certified letters, which I have present here with me, certified letters on multiple occasions to both entities, Hand and Planning and Transportation. None of those certified letters were ever responded to. No one has responded to those. The only thing that I've ever been presented with are very vague Bloomington statutes which do not even describe in their glossary building materials, and I'm referring to the Hand Title VI ordinance for sanitation. In there is no description for building materials. There is a description for garbage. There is a description for rubbish. Now, Hand simply calling my installed art and my building materials and tools and my compost pile garbage or rubbish is not correct. It doesn't just, their repeated suggestion that all of my permitted materials, lawful materials, the suggestion that these materials are scattered garbage indiscriminately placed is absolutely false. Anyone who comes onto my property, which I invite you all to do, you will see that everything is very organized. I am working toward building my 2-story structure in the back. The only thing that has been inhibiting me is the fact that I have had to constantly come before the Board of Zoning Appeals and the Board of Public Works for the exact same disputed items. Christopher Wheeler here has stated such that both issues refer to my very same materials. So once again, I am being denied my right to due process in that I'm getting absolutely no response from either department, from Hand nor Planning and Transportation. And in good faith, I accepted Beth Kate's agreement to organize this meeting, which took place. And there has been nothing done since that time. I do not understand why I am being prosecuted tonight without there having been follow-through on the city's part. Why? This is, I grew up on a farm. This is the old expression, closing the barn doors after the cows have already gone out. Why are we closing the barn doors while the cows are still in the pasture? Why are we not pushing this meeting back until there has been some forward progress from what was agreed upon on the 2nd of this month? Not only that, but the items that I submitted to the board packet, even this past Thursday, were not included. Did any of you get a chance to look at the video that was taken? You did. Thank you. I appreciate that. I wish I had known that that would take place, but I was told just yesterday by Adam Wason that the policy of the city is not to confirm that materials that are submitted to any board packets are ever affirmed positively. It's just a random shot in the dark that if someone submits any materials, that they will be added to the packet or even added to the public record. And right now, I wish that every single item that I have previously submitted be added to the public record for the entire public to see, because I'm not only being judged in this forum by the members of the Board of Public Works, but I am being judged by the public in general. And if they are missing key elements to my defense, then no matter what happens in here, when I walk out this door, people are going to be judging me and in a biased way, assuming incorrectly that I am in violation, when in fact I am not, because it has yet to be presented to me specifically what is in violation. So just as I say, just saying that I'm in violation does not make it so until there has been a meeting and a discussion about each and every item, because Title VI does not even address the fact that I have been spending years and months curating my property, trying to improve its quality, trying to improve its habitability, trying to put a structure on my property in which some of these materials can be stored away.
Thank you very much for your comments. It's now time for board questions. Do we have?
Madam President, if I
Yes.
may just let the board know your time. You can take a seat, Joe.
I'm waiting here for questions.
I will just mention a few things. The meeting did occur that Mr. Davis referred to. You all were provided the video. Every email that you sent to April asking for information to be shared with the board was shared with the board, as I told you yesterday. Every single email has been forwarded to the board. We have done that every time you have sent us anything, Mr. Davis. I'll also note that you're stating that Mr. Zodi is going to be scheduling a meeting with you. I was copied on the emails where he gave you 3 different dates with over 8 hours of availability prior to this meeting, and you said that none of those times worked for you. That is,
I responded to him that I was available in the latter part of this week.
so it's that meeting can still occur. We are going to ask the board to continue with their action tonight. We are going to ask that they reject your appeal. And that meeting can still occur. There is still a process that would be gone through, that you can have that meeting and you can have that discussion with Mr. Zodi as well. I think I can state for everyone on behalf of the city that they have been trying the entire time to come to a good faith effort with you. It's why you had 4 department heads at your property that day. It's why they've spent the amount of time they have trying to address these issues with you. So what our recommendation to the board is that we have our city legal department, we have our Director of Housing and Neighborhood Development, and our Planning and Transportation Director all in agreement that your property is outside of compliance of city code. And so that is what I will ask the board to be considering tonight. We will be asking the board to reject your appeal. Thank you.
Again, how can it be outside of compliance when compliance has not even been shared or discussed at the level that I have been requesting for a year and a half? A year and a half.
Mr. Davis,
stating
Mr. Davis,
that I am out of compliance does not make it so.
I did not ask you any questions here. I was just informing the board of the city's perspective. Your time is up.
You're informing me that there
Your time is up.
that I am not being granted my rights to due process. My rights are being denied.
Our city legal department and others are in disagreement with that statement. Your time is up, Mr. Davis. I'd ask you to please sit down.
I would like to ask a question of Mr. Wheeler.
Hi, Chris Wheeler with City Legal.
Thank you. So in the report for this As alluded, this is something that we've been working with and through for some time. We did watch the video of the meeting that took place on November 2nd. It seems that there are items on the property that clearly fall within Title 20, and there are items on the property that also fall under Title 6. Some of them could fall under either. So I just wanted some clarification. Generally speaking, not down to the detail, for the item that is under appeal right now, what are the general items that citation was connected to, just for clarity's sake?
Yes, thank you very much. If you'll recall the testimony provided by Mr. Counsel when the city did present its information, photographs were provided to the board, and I'm not sure the board has them in front of them anymore, which I am disappointed to find out. It doesn't look like you have your photographs. There were photographs provided that had exhibit numbers 1 through 15. And in those photographs, again, these were taken after the NOV was issued on the 17th of August, but Mr. Counsel testified that the items that are depicted in these photographs are the same items that he was viewing on the 17th. They may have been moved from one space to another, but they're still the same items that are on the property. And as we were looking through the photographs, I can say that with regards to photograph number 1, the clay pipe and buckets, interior mirror fragment, metal grates in various stages of decomposition would be rubbish. If you look at exhibit 2, the clay pipe, metal grates, metal pieces in various stages of decomposition are rubbish. This is the opinion of Hand, and this is the opinion of Rob Counsel as he viewed them on the 17th of August. If you look at exhibit 3, the fence posts in various stages of decomposition are rubbish. In exhibit 4, there is evidence of yard waste. In exhibit 5, the awning, the sink, the scrap metal items in various stages of decomposition are rubbish. In exhibit 6, the fence segments, washing machine, scrap metal, fence posts, all in various stages of decomposition are rubbish. In exhibit 7, scrap wood and metal items, all in various stages of decomposition. You can see them in the photographs. Those are rubbish. In exhibit 8, scrap wood and metal items, fence segments, all again in various stages of decomposition are rubbish. Exhibit 9, scrap wood and metal items in various stages of decomposition. There are plastic items, PVC and buckets. That's rubbish. In exhibit 10, scrap wood and metal items in various stages of decomposition. There's also an awning that's visible. Hand believes those to be rubbish. In exhibit 11, again, scrap wood and metal items in various stages of decomposition and an awning. I think this is just a different angle of the same picture, but showing that those items there are considered rubbish. In exhibit 12, again, scrap wood and metal items in various stages of decomposition. Also, vegetables are seen sitting on the ground. I doubt they're there anymore, but that is evidence of a violation of Title VI. In 13, scrap wood and metal items in various stages of decomposition. Exhibit 14, cinder blocks. Exhibit 15, scrap wood and cinder blocks. These items, in their various stages of decomposition, have been sitting on that property for a very long time, not just the 17th. The city believes that those are perfect examples of items of rubbish that should be removed. And if the city is given the opportunity to abate the property, those items will be removed. There are items on the property that do appear to possibly be something that could be considered building material that might actually pass some building inspection if they were put on a building to be used as a building in the city of Bloomington. And those items should be properly stored and are not. but we won't remove those as an abatement under Title VI. Thank you. I'll happily answer questions.
Any other questions? All right. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I ask that I be able to be given an opportunity to describe each and every one of those same items that Mr. Wheeler has so unjustly described as rubbish.
Okay. I'll give you 1 minute to offer closing comment, and then we're going to vote.
Excuse me, would it be possible to submit photos that were taken this afternoon? That's why I was late getting in, because some of the things being voted on are not there.
That doesn't affect this appeal. Thank you, though. All right. Let's go ahead and begin.
Okay, item number one. Item number one here, you can see, this is a bucket. I'm working on the landscape. It had gravel in it, okay? This is a container from a plant that I planted in the landscape. You can see my art items, my mirror. He calls this a fragment of a mirror. I don't know where that comes from. Okay, here again, he states that all this is rubbish. These are my installed art. He says that these tiles are rubbish. I stood them up and I put plants in them so that they could be seen more so as a container for my plants. They are not rubbish. Item 3, once again, items in the front of my house. This is my installed art. And these are from those very same images. Okay, item number 4, this is some wood that I piled up and then broke down and buried in my soil. This is building my soil. You can see right back here the screened soil that I have been moving from the back, from my compost pile, up to the front. Item number 5, you can see here at the corner my grandpa's washing machine. I've been using this clothes washing machine on my property ever since I purchased it 14 years ago. You can see my laundry detergent right there.
All right, so the time has
You
concluded.
can see this fencing material, which is now on the edge of my property, being used as a fence. You can see my outdoor kitchen. You can see the 100-year-old garage panel that I salvaged and incorporating into my structure.
All right, thank you.
You
Thank
can see my scaffolding. It might be rusty, but is still perfectly useful. You can see my other building materials here.
Yeah, thank you. The time has concluded. All right, do we have a motion on this item?
I move that we reject the appeal for the notice of violation 62023-08-1314 at 530 South Washington.
I second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. I will call the roll. Carone,
Aye.
Cooper Smith,
Aye.
Cox Deckard, aye. The appeal is denied. Next up is Title VI abatements, abatement at 530 South Washington.
Mr. Davis, do you mind taking a seat, please?
Good evening, Chris Wheeler, City Legal. And I have with me this evening Neighborhood Compliance Officer Rob Council. And if it would please the board, I would ask Mr. Council some questions in regards to this abatement request. Mr. Council, if you would please. Mr. Counsel, I presented to the board a series of additional photographs. Who took those photographs?
I took them this afternoon.
Just this afternoon?
Yes.
And those photographs depict the property in question with regards to this abatement at 530 South Washington Street,
That is
Bloomington,
correct.
Indiana?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. And so the notice of abatement that was provided to Mr. Davis, how was that provided to Mr. Davis?
The notice of abatement was delivered by hand, by the hand department, by myself and my assistant director.
Okay, and when you say by hand, do you mean that you hand-delivered it to Mr.
Hand-delivered.
Davis?
Yes, sir.
Following that hand delivery to Mr. Davis, and let me just ask you this, you handed it to Mr. Davis, right?
That's correct.
Okay, and so then following that hand delivery, did you then also provide a copy to Mr. Davis by certified mail?
Yes, yes, we did.
And we provided a copy of the certified mailing to the board this evening, correct?
I believe so.
We
Yes.
did. The certified mail does show a signature on it, or actually it's handwritten, that appears to be the name of Joseph Bradley Davis.
That's correct.
And then underneath there, you'll see the signature of someone who appears to be Joseph B. Davis, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that was delivered on the 22nd of August, 2023, correct?
Correct.
These photographs that you took today, do they show the property in a same or very similar condition as the date in which the notice of violation on the August 17 date was depicted?
They do, sir. Some of the stuff's been moved around and placed in different areas, but most of what has been there since August is still remaining on the property.
And does Hand recommend to this board that abatement occur as a result of failure to remedy?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. No further questions.
Thank you. Are there questions from the board to city staff?
Not at this time.
I have a question for the staff. There has been a previous abatement order on this property.
That's correct.
That's correct. And in the report, it had said that there had been a partial abatement completed under that abatement.
That's right.
Can I speak to that?
Sure.
Sure. So that abatement, if you guys do recall, we kind of ran out the clock on that, so we really had one day to work. The entire day that we were working, we were being stopped from completing the job because of arguments over what was considered and what was not considered okay for the property as far as hand goes. So we really didn't get a lot done that day, just because we were stopped, prevented from doing
By
it.
whom?
By Mr. Davis.
Yeah.
For that abatement, the one day.
It was myself, Mr. Wheeler was there for most of the time, another compliance officer named Joe Stong, and 3 city police officers.
Also the contractor that the
contractor.
city uses for abatements. So the fear that the city has at this point in time, if there were to be any more delays with regards to the effort to abate, we would run into the same situation where we're running out of time, because we have asked in this abatement, as you can see in the staff report, that this be a continuous abatement, but it expires 1 year from the date of the original NOV. I fully expect that after Mr. Davis is done with his response tonight, if in fact the board does agree to abate, he will appeal. We will go to the circuit court, and there will be additional efforts to delay through the appeal to try and drag this out again to next August. If Mr. Davis does come up here to ask for any continuances, we would ask that those be denied. Thank you.
Thank you. Another question about abatement. Because I know the Board of Zoning Appeals held their meeting recently for the Title 20 violations. Does this abatement tend to Title 20 violations in addition to Title 6?
It does not. So with regards
regards to Title 20, that was merely an appeal of a notice of violation. There was not any abatement order that went with that, to my knowledge. And the only abatement that would be occurring is with regards to Title 6 items. Any items that are building materials, I believe that the planning department is working with Mr. Davis to determine how those can be properly stored. So there are still some efforts going on to try and identify those items to get them properly stored.
Okay, so the items that would be considered part of the building materials or the building project would be handled by planning as it is related to Title 20.
And the hand department and the planning department have been working together to try and make this work.
Okay, but this abatement would not be affecting the materials that are identified as building materials. It would be affecting the materials, much of what you had outlined when I asked about the items that were of concern related
Correct.
to Title VI.
That's right.
Okay.
Can I ask a tangential question about the vehicles on the property and how those are, I assume, not considered under Title VI or Title 20?
They are considered under Title 20 with regards to keeping them properly stored. They have to be on an improved surface. So Title 20 speaks far more directly with regards to how to handle those types of vehicles that are stored on the property. Title 6 is just silent on it.
Can I ask
Sure, go ahead.
specifically about one of the vehicles that looks from the photographs to be parked in front of the house, possibly in the parking lane, that looks like it is
Yeah, that's sitting in the street.
a container for?
That's an issue for the city's parking enforcement personnel
So that's
to
handled,
deal
okay.
with. Yeah, so that's outside of what we're dealing with here as well.
I've also been in conversation with the planning staff that's also been working with Mr. Davis, and they are actively working with him to determine what would need to be in proper storage for potential building materials. Parking Services has been involved for the vehicles that have been on the street that have been inoperable at times. And so, yes, there's multiple city departments involved on several levels, but the cars that are on the property in the backyard, those fall under Title 20 of City Code for parking. It's parking on unimproved surfaces.
I have another question about sort of the limits of the abatement process. Looking at a photo of the front porch of the property, does the abatement process allow the individuals to go onto Mr. Davis's porch, or is it stopped outside the structure of his house?
I'm sorry, hand enforcement, neighborhood enforcement or compliance officers have been instructed to stay off the porch.
Any other questions for city staff at this time?
Thank you.
All right, we will take comment from the resident at this time. We will give 5 minutes for that.
I'm sorry, city staff just had upwards of 10 minutes. Why am I only granted 5 minutes?
They actually took about 2.5 minutes to do their presentation. Board questions are outside of that allotment. We may have questions following your comments as well.
Okay, for one thing, I would like to present these images that my friend Jamie Scholl has presented today.
Get them to us, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes, it is true that a partial abatement took place on or around August 8th or 9th. That was just a few hours after my lawsuit against the city had been tossed out on a technicality. I was ready to go and file an appeal. Lo and behold, the city was there to start removing my things. Therefore, I had to immediately address that issue. It's true, the abatement crew was present on that day, Joe Stong as well. Unlike what Mr. Wheeler has presented, Joe Stong, it wasn't as if they were wishing they needed more time. They were taking my building materials straight away, and they took my building materials, not other items, but my building materials straight off the back of my truck, straight off of my trailer where they had been organized. That's not their jurisdiction. That is the Bureau of Motor Vehicles. A load on my truck, even if it's a load that is on a vehicle that is parked on the street, is in possession of that truck. It is unlawful to steal those items, which is exactly what took place. Over, I would say, more than $2,000 of my building materials were taken from me in theft on that day. And again, they were taken straight off of the back of my truck, straight off of my trailer. And when I started to speak out against this, when the third-party abatement crew were removing items, they were instructed by Mr. Wheeler to take everything must go. It's all garbage. He stood there and kept yelling that in front of us all. There were many civil standby officers. Dave Askins was present as well, and other community members. But the abatement crew, after I objected, I said, hey, that's a good piece of wood. It might have a nail in it, or it might have a little bit of rot at the end. What a builder does is he cuts off, or I cut off, he or she, as a builder, cuts off any kind of waste scrap. Now, if you go buy brand new construction lumber, sometimes that'll have a knot at the end, which makes it unusable. So you cut that off and you work with what you've got left. That's my decision to decide. But thank goodness the abatement crew, they started to sift through the items, and they didn't take everything away. And at a certain point, they were busting up my 100-year-old garage that I salvaged. And Joe Stong finally, after she had contacted the building department and the planning and transportation department to verify my certificate of zoning compliance and my building permit, then she told them to stop. And so they moved on to my outdoor washing machine. And she told them to take that away. And they refused. They said, no, this is not garbage. This is plumbed. This has got electricity to it. This is not garbage. And then she said, well, let's proceed up to the front. And I have water catchment basins around the corners of my house to catch the water that comes off the roof so that the water doesn't go into my basement. And the third-party abatement crew said that they would help me move those items onto my front porch so they wouldn't be taken away. So my savior on that day was the third-party abatement crew. They showed that the city's description of all of my items as garbage, as what they were being removed from, that those were not garbage. And again, we are addressing all the very same issues. All of my building materials in my installed art have yet to be specifically addressed by either department, planning, transportation, or hand. So once again, we're back in the same place. No one has given me the time of day to address my request that has been ongoing for a year and a half. So not only was I violated then, but obviously there's preparation to violate me further and to bill me for it. I requested that bill immediately after those items were removed from my property. I have yet to receive that bill. I asked under a request for public records for that bill. Nothing came forth. The city is specifically choosing which information they want to provide It's clear they're building a case against me. They've been very successful. And yes, I am going to continue to fight for my civil rights in circuit court because I am not being presented with my lawful civil rights. I ask that you continue this discussion about abating my property to a future date in which I have had an opportunity to have John Zodi on my property. I'm sure he's going to document again the meeting and have Anna Killian Hansen video it. And once we have this, then you again will be able to see that not only are we talking about my installed art, but we are talking about my sanctioned materials.
Thank you for your comments. Are there questions from the board? Okay. I will offer one comment that I think it's going to be really important in this particular case that inventory of building materials be complete and submitted as quickly as possible. That meeting was held on November 2nd. The reason I say that is because your definition of building materials and the city's definition of building materials may not be the same. And so what might be viewed on the property as being a violation of Title VI, you may see those as building materials. And so I think it's really important because of the conversation with planning and hand related to those building materials that inventory be submitted to them immediately. Because we are now 20-ish days past that point. And if this abatement moves forward, lacking that further conversation with the inventory could cause issues as it relates to Title VI versus Title 20 and the abatement connected to those. I think that should have already been submitted, but I strongly advise that within the next 2 days, it be submitted.
The way the abatement process works is there's a 10-day period for the property to come into compliance. I've spoken with Mr. Wheeler and Mr. Council. 10 business days from now, we would want it submitted in short order before that abatement. If the abatement's approved, then it would occur roughly after 10 business days.
Okay.
I'm sorry, did you just say that within 10 business days, the property could still come into an alleged compliance?
Yeah.
So that means that there's no reason for any sort of abatement order to be issued because we still have not.
That's not what I'm saying, Mr. Davis.
Had this meeting between John Zodi and myself and whoever else he wishes to bring onto my property.
Mr. Zodi gave you 8 hours.
Yeah, I do want to clarify that item as well because we did receive that email chain per your request to April, and it was very evident that Mr. Zodi had made an effort to offer many opportunities for that meeting to happen before this meeting. Because it did not happen before this meeting, it appears he's still extending the opportunity to hold the meeting after this meeting that we're having currently.
And what good does that do, to hold that meeting after I already have been denied my appeal? What good does that do?
Well, as Mr. Wason pointed out, there's a 10 business day window.
It's traditionally 10-day window, which does not take into account holidays and weekends. I did ask staff to make it a 10 business day to offer a little bit more time there as well.
Okay, I appreciate that, yes, given the week. So I think what Mr. Wason's trying to say is that there are 10 business days for the further conversation, the submission of the inventory further compliance before an abatement would take place following this board's decision.
Then why was my appeal denied tonight? Because obviously, as I've been stating constantly, this meeting has never taken place yet, but yet I am being told that I am culpable for fines when the city has not honored their promises?
When the appeal is denied, that is an indication that the board concurs with Hand's findings.
Again, how can there be any concurrence? Because basically, I have not been able to have my time before members of Hand to point out specifically and address items. Again, I say just by merely stating that my items, my possessions are garbage does not make them so, especially when I have not been given the opportunity to ask what under these vague titles, like especially Title VI. It does not have any definition in there for building materials and tools, and the same with Title 20. There is no definition of building materials and tools. These ordinances are deficient. They do not possess all of the words that are necessary to hold a discussion like this. They are limited to about, the Title VI is limited to about a glossary of 8 to 10 words. There is nothing in there that allows for the judgment of building materials to be construed as garbage, to be construed as rubbish. There is nothing in there that says that a person cannot have a compost pile. And if you notice in those photographs that were submitted, I had torn apart my compost pile. And as a matter of fact, I was, on the day in which those vegetables were taken, I was sorting through some of my produce that I had just gathered. I was going through it. The reason that that produce is not there currently is because I ate it. I ate that. And I'm being told that I cannot have my groceries outside of my house. I cannot have my garden items that my property generates outside of my house. What is going on? And again, this notice of violation that was issued on the 17th of the month of August was not issued after there was any warning. There was no warning. My first notice was a notice of violation, and on that very same day, submitted to you all was a request to abate my property. No warning, same day, and on that very same day, Planning and Transportation issued their fines against my property, which now I'm facing almost $8,000 in fines from Planning and Transportation, all issued on the very same day.
The reason that there were no warnings is because this followed a series of violations. And in a situation where there have already been an established series of violations, there would not be warnings issued.
And again, I have been trying to appeal this because no one for a year and a half has come onto my property and specifically pointed out what is in violation. I largely believe that's because they don't know themselves. They've been grasping at straws, looking for any and everything that they can seek to punish me with, because this all comes down to I have an abusive landlord neighbor who controls more than 50% of the bedrooms on my block. She wishes me out of there. She's been covetous of my property ever since I purchased it 14 years ago. And this is just her using the city as a weapon to abuse me.
I would like at this time to open it to public comment. If there's anyone who would like to make public comment on this item, now is the opportunity to do so. And public comment will be 3 minutes per speaker.
Thank you. My name is Jamie Scholl. I'm sure, like everyone here, this issue has become quite tiresome and time-consuming. There are some things, since I attended that meeting, you guys had all seen, you ladies have all seen the video. There are some things that, that are concerning that for myself and a few others that were also there, including the retired environmental educator. And those do go to some of what Joe has talked about and the lack of definition of what some of these things are. Some of it would be the definition of the word putrescible. So I know Kathy had sent in the letter, it was published in the Bloomingtonian, explaining those things in the process of, natural process of decay. And Mr. Zodi at that time, whenever I was trying to understand this for my business practices, which is converting, part of it is converting lawns, using the decaying process to build soil. Sometimes that takes 2 or 3 years to get the appropriate soil for installing things that I sell at market, I sell other places that can be in high demand, like wild ginger. So that does need to be addressed. I remember from that meeting, Kathy had asked about the leaves, and we've had this whole transition with that. Because of this issue and that question and the follow-up discussion with Mr. Zodi during that meeting, I had last week, at the end of the week, sent an email to BCOS in regards to Title VI in particular to help define that. Because there are problems, even if they are not aware of that. There are issues that are coming up with that. Something else I noted at that meeting, and I really don't appreciate the comments that were happening next to me by city staff. But there are some issues with where one person in one department states that an item is one thing, and another person in another department will point to that same item and call it a different thing. So trying to discern, like there's the concern with discerning between and a judgment between what is this and what is that. The one photo, the older one, and one that I'd taken today about cement blocks, those are building materials. They can be used in different things. I've used them with gardening and planted oregano and things that drape over them. And if they're going to be abated, I'd like to get them because I could use them in my practice. But so there are some things there that really do need to be addressed, and I'd like for you to take that into consideration. Thank you.
I'm Mark Haggerty. I have a number of concerns that are around this process. One of the things is, I think many of us can see that Bloomington is in the process of gentrification, and that many of us who homesteaded here in previous years in dwellings that could not be lived in when we moved in, or at least they certainly wouldn't come close to code. Our eccentricities were tolerated, and we grew up very nice neighborhoods. I know Jane lived in our neighborhood for quite a while, and I know that she's been interested in me cleaning up my place before. Not very much, though. But so we're in the middle of a real estate rout. The prices in Bloomington of our real estate are going up faster than you even imagine. I was with Judy Sharp the other day, and she showed me the recent transactions where things go up by 400% in 5 months. I've seen the city bidding on real estate against us when we have a landlord that owns a whole bunch of his block who once covets his property, it makes him a political enemy. Now, he's running for mayor. He ran for mayor. And another troubling thing is a judge from out of the county came over and said that he couldn't run for mayor because he didn't have enough signatures, even though all the people that signed for him signed within the proper time. They didn't have time to count it. Well, if I'd been that judge, I'd have gone the other direction because those people signed before the deadline. So we lost a candidate for mayor. I tried to write in a vote for him and was told we don't have write-in votes. Now, I looked at the ballot last time, and it looked like the poetry of disaster. I didn't have anybody to vote for or against. The only question that was interesting at all was the school board question. And all of this is part of this gentrification. And for city legal to be telling you guys what the rules are up here and kind of running this thing, that's oppressive. And I want to see you guys running these meetings. You may be of a different class of people than Joe or me because we don't live very high on the hog. But I'd still rather have you running the meeting than city legal. And I hate to see city legal, am I past my time? Hate to see city legal acting like they're calling the police in a meeting like this. That's oppressive of me. I don't want to be drug away. So anyway, keep in mind this whole thing. I'm appalled about living here right now, and I'm thinking about what in the world to do. I think things are worse than people understand, and I think our ballot represents that. And I appreciate you guys listening. I appreciate the work you're doing. And I would help Joe clean up his backyard, too. All right.
Thank you.
Nice to see you guys.
Thanks. Do we have any public comment on Zoom?
I see no comment.
Any final questions that need clarified by the board?
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Do we have a motion on this item?
I move that we approve the abatement at 530 South Washington.
I second.
All right. There's a motion and a second. I will call the roll. Carone?
Aye.
Cooper Smith?
Aye.
Cox Deckard? Aye. Motion passes. Do we have any staff reports this evening? And we do not have approval of claims at this point.
We do not.
We'll be looking at those next meeting.
Yes.
So with nothing else, I will call for adjournment.